everyone, welcome to Val Fashion's YouTube channel. My name is Eunice. In this video, I'll be showing us how to make this beautiful gown. This gown has three parts, from shoulder to this half length here. It's a half scale basic bodice, and you can see that it is that manipulated, and this is how I achieved this root effect that we have here. So from the half length here to the knee, I have a 180 flare. And then I have this fabric I joined to the down part to create this gathered effect. And this is it down. So basically, of the half length, I have two steps. I also created these beautiful ruffles you see that goes round all the way to the back. Can you see what it looks like here? So this is actually adding beauty to this gown. And then for the sleeve here, I have a gigot sleeve. A gigot sleeve that also has this tiny ruffled effect. You see? And the down part of the sleeve here, I have an elastic to give that fitting around here. And this is it here. So, and you see, this is really beautiful and very simple to make. I hope this is something you're interested in learning. If this is it, make sure to keep on watching till the end. And if you're yet to subscribe to my channel, please make sure to hit on the subscribe button to subscribe. And ensure you put on your notification bell so you receive a notification every time I upload a new video. And if you're a returning subscriber, thank you so much for coming back. And please, if you find this video helpful, feel free to share this video, like this video, leave a comment if you have any. Thank you so much, and let's get right into the video. I'll be making use of this floral crepe fabric, and here I have 4 yards of this fabric, and the length of the fabric is 60. The fabric is by 60. So the measurements needed for this project will appear on your screen. So having seen the measurements, we're going to start with drafting the flare. When making an outfit, always endeavor to draft the biggest part, especially when you are drafting directly on your fabric. Always endeavor to draft the biggest part first so that you can save your fabric. And we're going to be starting with drafting our 180 flare. And here, to determine the radius of our 180 flare, I'm going to use the waist circumference. And the waist circumference I'm working with here is 38 inches. I'll be dividing 38 by 3.14. So 38 divided by 3.14, that's 12.1, which is 12 inches. So the radius of our 180 circle is 12 inches. So the next thing you want to do is to determine the length of the flare. And here, from shoulder to the knee point where the flare will stop is 44 inches for my client. So that's 44 inches. So I'm going to subtract her half length from this 44 inches. And the half length I'm working with here is 17.5. So I'll say 44 minus 17.5. And that is 26.5 inches. So plus my sewing allowance, my stitching allowance to join it to the waistline and to join it to the down part. So that's plus 1 inch. So in total, the length of the flare is going to be 27.5. Remember, we're still going to have gathers at the down part, which will make up the length of 61 inches, which is the full length of my client. Okay, so already I have the length of the flare, which is 27.5. So let's write down this 27.5. So this is our 27.5. And then the radius we are working with is 12 inches. R is 12 inches. So I'll add 12 inches to this measurement, which is the flare length, right? So plus 12 inches. So that's 39.5. So in total, to draft our flare, we're going to be looking for 39.5, which is approximately 40 inches. So later, we'll talk about the length of the gathers that we'll have at the down part. So now we're looking for 40 inches. So I'm going to open up my fabric. So this is the savage of my fabric. At this part here, I'm going to measure 40 inches. So here at the savage, I'm going to measure 40 inches, or exactly 39.5, but I'll work with 40 inches rather. So this is my 40 inches here. So this 40 inches, I'm going to fold it over. Can you see I'm holding the point where 40 inches ends? I'm going to fold it over like this. So I haven't folded into two like this. So I have 40 inches on this side and I have 40 inches on the other side. So next I'm going to fold my fabric. Now this is it. Can you see? I'm going to fold my fabric to form a triangular shape. Take note that I'm holding these two parts together, and then I'll fold to form a triangle shape. My fabric folded in a triangular shape. So you want to confirm, and first of all, now the folded part, the 40 inches is the one under here. So I'm just going to measure and be sure that I still have my 40 inches. So you can see that I have up to the 40 inches I'm looking for. Okay, so I just added that half inch just for cutting allowance sake. Okay, so from this folded, from this part here, where all the 4 points meet, from the apex here, I'm going to come down by the length of the radius, which is 12 inches. So placing my tape from here, I'm marking exactly on 12 inches. So here is 12 inches, 12 inches, and then 12 inches. So this is our radius here. Still placing my tape from here, I'll go ahead and mark the total length of 39.5 inches, which is our actual length, okay? So I'll mark 39.5, 39.5, 9.5. So I'm just going to connect the points like this. And then we'll go ahead and cut out the radius. Okay, so this is what our flare looks like. Can you see? These are 180 flare. So now to determine the length of the gathers we're going to have at the down part. Remember already I told us that the half length of my client is 17.5 inches. And then plus this flare. So how do we determine the length of the flare? Now let me fold it like this and just arrange it well. So the half length of my client is 17.5 inches. We need half inch for joining the upper part. So I'm going to place my tape on minus 17 instead of minus 17.5. This is because I'll be using this half inch to join to the upper part. So I'm basically placing my tape on minus 17 because I have a half inch seam allowance here on the flare. So I'll place my tape from 17 inches and then all the way to the end of the flare. Here I have 44 inches. That's plus half inch for joining the down part. So in total, the length of this flare stops at 44.5 inches. And we're going to use half inch to join the down part. So that's basically 44 inches. Okay, so this 44 inches we have here, I'm going to be subtracting it from the full length of the gown in order to get the length of the gathers that we're going to have at the down part. And the full length of the gown of my client is 61 inches. So we're going to say 61 minus 44, and that will give us 17 inches. So meaning that the gathers that we're going to have at the down part is going to be 17 inches long. Then we also need hemming allowance for the gathers, and that's going to be a hemming allowance of 2 inches. So that's 19 inches. We also need half inch for joining the gathers to the flare. So that's plus 0.5, which is half inch. So that's 19.5 inches. So the length of the fabric we're going to have at the down part is going to be 19.5 inches. Next, we want to determine the width of the fabric because remember we're going to gather it at the down part of our flare. So to know the amount of fabric we're going to gather, I'll fold my flare properly and then measure what I have here at the hem of the flare. So at the hem of my flare here, I'm going to measure this way. Okay, here I have 31 inches. So I have 31 inches. And take note that my fabric is folded into 4. So that means I have 31 inches in 4 places. So I'm going to multiply 31 by 4. So first, let's write down this length that we have, the length of the flare, the length of the gathers. The length we are looking for is 19.5. Okay, and here the down part I have 31 inches. I'm going to multiply this 31 inches by 4. So 31 times 4, I have 124 inches. So that means at the down part I have 124 inches. So this 124 inches I have here, I'm just going to multiply it by 2 or by 1.5 depending on how much fabric you have. So I don't know the fabric I have first. I'm going to multiply by 1.5 and also multiply by 2. And then I'll check what I have to see which one will work better. Okay, so 124 times 2 gives me 248. And then 124 times 1.5. So that gives me 186. So now I'll check and see which one will come out from my fabric. Okay, so I've cut out my fabric and here I have 19.5 inches as you can see. I have my 19.5 inches. So the width of the fabric I have here, remember we calculated and we got 186. That's for when we multiply by 1.5, but I couldn't get up to that. Remember, I'm working with 4 yards of fabric. So this is my fabric on fold. Can you see? I folded it into 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so and I have 37 inches on folds in 4 places. So I'll be working with what I have. So if you have more than that, please feel free to multiply by what you have. So here I have 37 times 4, so that's 148. So it's not up to 186, but I'll be working with this. So this is for the gathers we'll have at the down part. And then I also went ahead to cut this long strip that we're going to be creating, that small ruffles, gathers we will have on top of the flare. And here I have a length of 4 inches. This is a length of 4 inches here, and the width is the same 4 yards. Okay, it's the same 4 yards, 4 inches, so that by the time I fold the down part with half inch and then half inch again, half inch and half inch again, so 1 inch will go down, 1 inch will go up, so I'll be left with 2 inches. So I said that the length I have here is the same 4 yards, which is 104. That's 37 inches in width. A yard comes in 36, but here I have up to 37. So 37 in 4 places. This is the fabric we'll be using for it. So now we're going to draft the upper bodies before we go ahead and draft the sleeve. So I'll be drafting on my pattern paper because we're going to be doing a little bit of slash and spread. So I'm going to fold my pattern paper into 2 like this. So the folded part is facing me. Let's see if this is enough to give me the bust measurement of my client. The bust measurement of my client is 43 inches. So 43 divided by 4, that's 11 and 3/4. So this is enough to give me a bust circumference. Okay. So first I'm going to draw my starting line, which is the shoulder line. Next, I'm going to mark the chest line. And the chest line of my client, to get the chest line, you divide 43, which is her bust circumference, divide it by 6, and then add 2.5 to it. So that's 9.6. So 9.6 is the chest line of my client, so I'm going to mark on 9.6. So next I'm going to mark the bust point. Our bust point is 11.5 inches. And then next I'll mark the half length. The half length is 17.5. So I'll add half inch to this measurement for joining it to the down part, which is the flare. So that's automatically 18 inches. So I'll go ahead and straighten out my lines. Okay, so this is the chest line. I'll label it CL, bust line BL, and waist line. Okay, so here on the shoulder line, I'm going to mark half of the shoulder measurement of my client plus half inch for joining the sleeve, and that will bring me to 9 inches. And then I will come down by a shoulder slant of 1 inch. I'm taking 1 inch for my shoulder slant here. And then I'm going to mark a neck width. Now this neck width is temporal because the neckline of this outfit is very wide. This is just me getting the shoulder slant first. So I'm marking 3 inches here as the neck width. So connect the shoulder slant this way. So having marked it, here on the chest line, I'm going to enter half of the shoulder measurement plus half inch also. I'll mark it here. And then I'll connect using my straight ruler. So this is now going to be the front armhole. So I'll get the midpoint of this armhole by folding my tape into 2. So at this midpoint, I will go in by 3/4 of an inch. And then I'll connect it back to the shoulder tip here. And then here on the chest line, I'm going to enter her bust measurement divided by 4, which is 10 and 3/4. So I'll mark it here. So I'll use my armhole curve to connect from this midpoint to this bust measurement on the chest line. So this is the front armhole. Okay? So the next thing I'm going to do now is to mark the bust pan, which is the nipple to nipple. And the nipple to nipple of my client is 8 inches. So 8 divided by 2, that's 4. I'll mark 4 inches here. And I'll also mark it on the bust line. I'll use my straight ruler to connect the points like this. So on this bust line, I will come down by 1 inch. This is the bust point. I'll come down by 1 inch here. I'm going to mark half inch on both sides of the nipple to nipple line, which is the bust pan line. So I'll mark half inch here. So this is for our waist dart. And then I'll connect it to this 1 inch mark I have here. And then I'll also do the same here on this side. So now we have our front waist dart. So here now on the bust line, the bust measurement divided by 4 is 10 and 3/4. I'm going to mark it here on the bust line. On the waistline, the waist measurement divided by 4 is 9.5. I'll mark 9.5 and I'll replace my dart intake of 1 inch. I use the dart of 1 inch here, okay? So you want to replace it back. So I'm going to connect it this way and then to the chest line. So I'm going to mark the bust dart, which is the difference between the front half length and the back half length. And for my client, it is 2 inches. Her front half length is 17.5, while her back half length is 15.5 inches. So that's a difference of 2 inches. So I'll come here to this side. And you see at the side here, placing my tape from the bust line, I'll come down by 2 inches. And this is it. Okay? So now I'm going to connect this bust dart to finish up here at this bust pan, which is the nipple to nipple line here. I'll connect it like this. Okay, so you can see that we have the bust dart. So at this bust dart here, I'm going to come get the midpoint of this 2 inches mark. So obviously it is 1 inch. I'll come out by half of an inch and then just create this shape here that shows that there's a dart. You see? Okay, so then we'll come to the neck line. So like I said that this neck width is temporal. And the neck width I'm going to be working with here is 5 inches. And then the neck depth I'll be working with is going to be 6.5 inches. On this neck depth, I'm going to mark 5 inches here also so that I have a straight line going this way. Okay, and then I'll bring it down like this. Okay, so we're going to have a sweetheart neckline. So already I have the neck depth of 6.5 inches here already. So at the side here, I'm going to go up by 2.5 inches at the side here. And then I'll bring in my armhole curve and connect from this point to the neck depth I have here. So this is what our neckline will look like. I'm going to bring in my paper scissors and we'll cut out this pattern. Okay, so this is what our pattern looks like. I'm going to bring in my tracing wheel and transfer the markings I have to this side also. So I've transferred my markings. You'll not be able to see, but I can actually see it. Okay, so I've transferred my markings to this side, and this is what we have. So now the next thing we're going to do is to transfer our dart. I'll be transferring the bus dart. And to be able to transfer a bus dart to the waist, you have to open the waistline. So let me turn it this way. So this is our waist dart. So we want to transfer the bus dart to the waist. So open the waist dart up like this. I'm going to be cutting it all the way to the bust point here, and then I'll close the bust dart. Can you see? These are bust dart here. This line I have here, I'm just going to fold it over on top of the bust line. Can you see? So I've transferred the bust dart to the waistline here. I'll bring in my masking tape and tape it down. I'll repeat the same thing on this side. I'm going to open the waist dart also, and then I will close the bust dart. So you can see by opening the waist dart, allowing me to close the bust dart. So this is it. Now we have closed our bust dart. So now the next thing we're going to do, we want to have this gathering on the neckline. So to do that, I'll be transferring this bust now, the dart I have here on the waist, to the neckline. Just watch carefully what I'm doing. I'm going to come this way. I'll use my marker from the bust point here. I'm going to connect it like this, and then I will also connect like this. Okay, so now we want to close the waist dart so that we can transfer to the neckline here. So I'm going to open this up first. Can you see? I didn't cut through the bust dart. Can you see? So I have it this way. So I'm going to now close the waist dart. Let's see what I have here. So I'm closing the waist dart. You want to make sure that the first dart leg, you place it on top of the other dart leg. If you just place it like this, you haven't closed your waist dart. So you must make sure that they are on top of each other like this. So this way you have closed the waist dart. I'll bring in my masking tape also and tape this part down. So for this other side, I'll repeat the same thing. So you can see that we have successfully transferred our darts, our bust and waist dart, we have transferred it to the neckline. Okay, so now I'm going to place my fabric and I'll show us how we'll be cutting it out. So here I've placed my fabric on fold, and then I'll bring in my pattern. I'm also going to fold my pattern into two like this. I want to make sure that it aligns here with the center front. Okay, so I'm just going to pin down this point, and this is it. So you can see the opening I have here. I'm going to use my chalk to connect to this point. So I'm just going to take it down like this. This is just it. Let's pin down this part first. Okay, and next I'm going to add my sewing allowance. I'll be using a sewing allowance of 1.5 inches. This outfit will not have lining, so I'm just going to use 1.5 inches. Half inch is going to be for ease, so I'll be stitching on 1 inch. So I'm marking 1.5 inches here at the side. I'm marking 1.5 inches also here, and then I'll connect it like this. So this is just basically it. and then we'll come out at the armhole here. Remember that the armhole already added half inch for joining our sleeve. So go ahead and cut out the pattern. Before taking out the pattern, I'm going to notch this point. This point, you can see this point that was slashed open because this is our actual center front. So you want to notch this point. Do you see? Just create a notch here because we're going to be working with this part. So you want to make sure to notch this point, okay? So now this is it. I'm going to take out my fabric, my pattern paper, and this is what I have. So this is going to be our center front when we are done. So we'll leave this at this point first, and then we'll draft the back piece. The back piece is just going to be our basic back. I'm going to draft a basic back. If you don't know how to draft a basic bodice, I'll be dropping the link in the description box. I've done that severally on this channel, so I'll be doing that off camera. Cut out the back piece, and I also went ahead to cut the back piece facings for the two back pieces. So I added my zip allowance of 1 inch at the center back. So it's just our normal basic back. So talking about zip allowance, on our waistline, remember that I didn't add zip allowance to the flare. This is because anytime you are drafting using the formula, the 3.1 formula, that's for your 180 flare, or your 6.28 formula, that's for your 360 flare, it has a way of giving you your zip allowance. So this is the flare here. Let's measure it and see so that we're sure that we have our zip allowance. So from the folded part here, I'm going to measure all the way. So remember I said that my client's waist measurement is 38 inches and my fabric is on fold. So here I have 19 inches. So 19 plus 19, that's 38. So you can see that I have my zip allowance. So everything I have here is 20.5. So with this 3.14 formula, you don't need to add zip allowance. The zip allowance will surely show up by itself. It will always give you extra 1.5 inches on fold or 1 inch on fold. So you don't need to add extra zip allowance. I hope we understand. So now I'll bring in my leftover fabric so that we can draft the sleeve. So to draft the sleeve, this is all I have left. So I'm going to manage it very well to give me the two sleeves. So first I'm going to fold my fabric on bias. Can you see here? On bias, you can see in a triangular shape, I folded into two. So first I'm going to see where I can get the armhole of my client. And our armhole is 8.6 inches, okay? So 8.6 inches. So at this point, I can get my 8.6 inches. So I'm just going to rule a straight line here. So I haven't got the 8.6 inches. I'm going to go up by the cap's height. And the cap's height I'm working with is 4 inches. I'm just going to use my free hand and just create this curve like this. Can you see? So this is it. So let's measure and see what we have here. So you see here, in total I have about 12 inches. So this is going to be enough to take care of that, to sew into the armhole of the outfit. So this is what I mean by the armhole of the outfit. Let me bring the back piece so that we are sure of what we are doing. So this is our back piece here. I measure the armhole. So can you see that I have 12 inches? So the measurement I have here is 12 inches in total, so that's fine. So next I'm going to measure the length of the sleeve. Remember I'm managing my fabric, so I'm not going to make this as big as the picture we have on the thumbnail. So from the apex here of this sleeve, I'm going to measure 20 inches. And that's including the length and the hemming allowance, and that's including the hemming allowance. So 20 inches in total. So I'll measure 20 inches this way, placing my tape on that apex. I'm not going to leave that point. I'll just keep measuring 20 inches. So this is it here. So this is what we have. So I'm going to go ahead now and I'll cut out the sleeve. Looks like, you see? So I'm going to place and cut the second sleeve and then I'll show us the next thing to do. So after cutting out the second sleeve, it's now time for us to sew our gown, we are done cutting. So I'll be starting with the down part, which is the flare. So this is the down part of our flare, and this is the gathers we're going to have at the down part of the flare. So you can see I've already gone ahead to hem the down part of our fabric that will be gathering, and I've created my gathers. So you can see that the gathers is quite small. So I'll be pinning it to the hem here. I gathered it to the width I have on the down part of the flare. So I'm going to pin it to the hem here, pinning my gathers. So I went ahead to stitch it. Can you see? I stitched them together and I wove the rough part. So you can see this is the wrong side of the cloth. You can see how neat it is already. And this is what it looks like on the right side. So you can see my gathers is not plenty because of course I'm working with the fabric I have, but it's coming out really well. This is what it looks like in the picture. The gathers is not even much on the thumbnail. So this is it. So now for this one that we're going to place on top of it, you can see I have already gathered it also. All I did was to fold the both hems, and I ran a loose stitch at the middle here so that I gather it to the measurement I have here at the hem of the flare. So I'm going to place it directly on top of this line that I have here. This line I stitched together. So I will place it over it like this and then secure it with my pin. So I'm going to keep pinning it over it. Okay, so I'm done pinning the gather strip, and you can see this is what we have. You see how it's forming that ruffle effect. So you can imagine doing this on a plain fabric, it will actually show more than a flowery fabric. So right now I'm going to take this to my sewing machine and stitch at the middle here, exactly where I ran my gather stitch. I'll stitch at the middle here so that I'm stitching directly on the part where I join the gathers and the flare. I'll stitch all the way to this end. Okay, I'll stitch all the way to this end, and then also for the, so this is our sleeve. I also went ahead to hem the down part. I'm going to be inserting elastic into this opening I have here, but that will be later. So to create the ruffle effect that we're going to have on this sleeve, I'm just going to fold into two randomly. I'll fold into two first, and then I will fold again. Can you see it's folded into two? And then I'll fold again and just pinch it. Can you see? Fold it into four and just create a pinch. This is what I mean by the pinch. Just going to stitch here diagonally on this sharp part that is forming the triangle shape. Let me show us another one. You can, it doesn't have to be on a straight line, you can just do it randomly. So I'm going to shift away from this one again and hold it again like this. Fold it into two. After folding into two, so now I'm folding into four, and then I will pin. And then I'm going to stitch just diagonally like this. I'll shift away from that point and then also hold here, fold into two, and then fold into four, pin also, and then stitch it diagonally. So can you see the effect I already have at the right side of the fabric? So I'm just going to do this randomly, just around. Don't need to follow any pattern. I'll do it on both of the sleeves and also stitch the gathers to the and also stitch the gathers to the flare. Then I'll come back and show us what we have before we treat the upper part. So I'm done stitching my ruffles. I gathers to the line here, to the joining here. This is what I have. I went ahead to press it. Can you see it's coming out really beautiful? I pressed it all. Okay. And for our sleeves, you can see I already picked and stitched all of it. So I picked and stitched randomly. This is just enough. My sleeve is not so big. So this is it here also. So here I have my elastic. So the width of the elastic I'm going to be inserting into the opening is the round arm measurement, which is her round upper round arm measurement, and that measurement is 14 inches. I'll be cutting exactly 14 inches. It's 14 inches. I'm not reducing it. This is so that it's not tight. But if you want it tight fitting, you can reduce with 2 inches. Why am I using 14 inches? By the time I stitch on 1 inch, that means I'm going to be left with 12 inches, and that's okay, okay? So here I'll cut out 14 inches in two places. So then I'll divide it into two. One will be for the left sleeve and one will be for the right. So here I have my safety pin that I'll be using to insert the elastic into it. So you can see my elastic has come out from this side. All you need to do now is to secure it with a pin. Then I'll remove my safety pin. I'll take this to my machine and stitch it down and also stitch down this side. You can see how it's gathered already. So I'll repeat the same thing for the second sleeve and then I'll show us the next thing to do. Okay, so I'm done stitching down the sides of the sleeves. I did it for both of them and this is what we have. You can see it's coming out well already. So I'm going to set the two sleeves aside and I'll bring in the front piece. So this is our upper bodice, the front piece, and this is what we have. So remember I notched this point. When we were drafting, I notched this point because this is the part where we're going to have our gathers. So this notch point is the exact center front. So from this notch point, I'm going to come down to the chest line. I'm going to use this chest line as a guide. So this is our chest line. I'm indicating here. So from this notch part, can you see from this our notch part, I'm going to slant it to this midpoint, to this chest line here. I hope you can see my chalk. I don't want to paint too much. So I'm going to take this to my sewing machine and stitch on this slanted line. So this is more like a dart. Remember, I transferred the waist dart and the bust dart all to the neckline. So our waist dart is 1 inch. The bust dart is 2 inches. So let's measure what we have here. Can you see that from the center front here to this notch point? From the center front here to the notched point, you see I have 3 inches in total, which is the bust dart and the waist dart. They all came here. So I'm going to stitch on this line. I'll just run a stitch here on this line and then I'll come back and show us the next thing to do. You can see I've run the stitch here, I've stitched it down. So you can see it's like a dart. Can you see? And this is what it looks like in front here. So you can see that our neckline is back to the normal shape it was. You can you see what we'll have? We're going to have our neckline looking like this by the time we gather it. So this is what we're going to do to achieve the gathered effect here at the center front. Here, my measurement from the neckline to this point is 7 inches. So I'm going to cut an elastic that is half of this measurement, which is 3.5 inches. I have 7 inches, I reduce the measurement by half. So that is 3.5 inches. So this is my 3.5 inches. I'm going to place this elastic here and I'll drag it. Can you see? Dragging it all the way down to this point. Can you see? So I'm going to take this to my sewing machine and run a stitch while dragging it so that it gets to this end. Can you see that I'm placing it from the neckline and it's getting to this point? Can you see it's getting to this point? This is so that it gathers my fabric for me this way. So I'll go do this and come back and show us. Okay, so after stitching my elastic, this is what I have, and this is what it looks like now in front. So you can see that our neckline has returned to its previous shape. Can you see what we have here? So we have this gathering effect around the chest area. So now you can cut out this excess, which is what I'm going to be doing. I'll cut out this excess and then I'll weave the rough part I have here. So now the next thing I'm going to do is to bring in the front facing. This is it here. So I'm just going to place it like this. You can see that now I've run the elastic at the center. So my facing will not be as sharp as the main fabric. So this is what I'm going to do. Can you see? I'll pin the shoulders here. Pin the shoulders here. And then I'll turn it to this side so that I can see the neckline. Can you see? The shoulders are aligned here. It's just the center from because this has already gathered. So all I need to do is to sew it from this side. That's from the main fabric to sew it from this side so that when we are done, we can now trim out the excess. You can see that the width of my facing is exactly the width of the upper body, that's the front piece. There's no difference. The only difference is that the neckline, the sweetheart neckline, is coming out sharper here. Can you see? So for my facing, I just placed and I cut exactly where we notched it. And this is it. So now I'm going to take this to my sewing machine and stitch it this way, following this sharp shape. And then I'll come back and show us how we're trimming out my excess here. So you can see I'm done stitching the neckline. So I'll go ahead now and trim the excess. You can see what I have here. So I'm just going to trim it out so that the shape matches up. Do you see? So this is it here. So this is now what our neckline looks like. So go ahead and notch the neckline. You have to make sure to notch it so that it is well relaxed when you iron. Okay, so I'm done ironing the neckline and I also applied my hemming gum to this side, that's to the facing, so you can see it's keeping it in place. And this is what our neckline looks like in front. You can see the front is coming out really beautiful already. So here is our back piece. I've gone ahead to stitch the facing to the neckline. But I left a space. This is because we're going to be stitching our zipper to the back. So I'll use the facing to turn this part after fixing the zipper at the center back. I also went ahead to stitch my darts, and I repeated the same thing on this side. Can you see? So, and I've also stitched the facing and I left a space. So now this is what I'm going to do. This is the wrong side of the front piece, and this is the wrong side also of the back piece. So I'm going to place them wrong side facing wrong side like this, holding the shoulders together. You see? So, and then the next thing I'll do, I'll flip now the right side of the fabric. Can you see this is the back piece? I'm going to flip it now to the right side of the front. And then I'll stitch the shoulders together. I'll repeat the same thing for the second one. And then I'll go ahead and sew the sleeve to the armhole. These are sleeves. I'll sew it to the armhole. And then I'll shape on 1 inch. Remember, I added a sewing allowance of 1.5 inches. So I'll shape on 1 inch and then leave the remaining half inch for ease. Okay? So the remaining half inch is for ease. I won't be shaping exactly on the 1 inch sewing allowance I added. So I'll go do that and come back and show us. So I'm done stitching the sides. So you can see, and I went ahead to weave it. So my work is clean on the inside. So now this is our waistline. I'll bring in the down part. Then I'm going to place right side facing right side. This is down the right side of the upper part, and this is the right side of the down part. First, I'm just going to get the midpoint and notch it. This is very important so that you give your cloth a nice balance. Don't just start from anywhere, okay? So I'll get the midpoint and notch it. I'll also get the midpoint here, and then I will notch it. So this will actually make the cloth have this nice balance and it to be centralized. So I'm going to place the right side facing right side, and then I'll pin. Okay? I'm going to take to my sewing machine and then stitch on half inch, which is the seam allowance I added to the waistline. After doing that, I'm going to weave the waistline and then I'll sew my zip on 1 inch, which is our sewing allowance. So before sewing our zip, I'm going to place the the back. Now this is the back here, and then I'll pick the other side of the back like this, and then place them right side facing right side. I'm going to leave the opening of my zipper. Here I'm using a 24 inches zipper. So I'm going to leave about, let's say, 22 inches. So I'll mark that 22 inches. Wherever I get my 22 inches, I'll sew all the way down. That's to close up the center back. And then I'll fix the zipper and use this part, that's the facing I left open here, to turn the zipper. Then I'll come back and show us what we have. Okay, so I'm done fixing my zipper to the center back. And this is what we have. I want to make sure that the zipper, the half length is aligned and is also aligned at the upper part. So can you see I used the facing to turn the zipper. That's why I left that space. Remember, I left a space of about 2 inches. This is so that I can neatly turn my zipper. And this is what it looks like on the inside. Can you see how neat it is? I've also shaped the gown. So right now, our gown is ready and it is properly ironed. So I'm going to wear it on the mannequin to show us the final outcome. Okay, here is the final outcome of our gown. You can see it came out really beautiful. Can you see how nicely the neckline is sitting, the sleeves, the flare, everything is just so fine. I hope you enjoyed watching this video and you learned something from this video. If you did, please make sure to share this video, like this video, and do not forget to subscribe to my channel. And also ensure to put on your notification bell so you get a notification every time I upload a new video. Thank you so much for watching. See you in my next video. Bye.